physician, Chris Burns, a 20-year stretch of 15 days. Is it time for a delicate change?
All right. Hear me? Okay, good. Okay, thanks for having me. I'm feeling like a broken record here, but I'll just say I want to thank the organizers for such a fantastic conference. This is going to be, I think, the peak. I think all the conferences are just really downhill from now on. So thanks for that. After the previous talk, we're going to go from these really, really big ideas and come crashing down to the nuts and bolts. And if you know me, you know I'm a kind of nuts and bolts kind of guy. So I'm sorry about that. I'm going to start off with, of course, my collaborators. And this is back at a redshift of 0.05 maybe. Things have changed a little bit. And so we have a more modern version of this. And I think I got everybody except Peter. We don't seem to have a picture of you. Maybe we have one from this meeting. But you'll see some very common faces. And of course, Mark is there, and Nick, always in the background. They want to promote us, which I'm always very grateful for. And I really just don't have enough time to really go into how much I appreciate being in such a fantastic group with such fantastic people. So I'm just going to start with a story. This is back at our meeting at Mitchell Ranch, which we've been to a few before. And we decided, in fact, I don't know, Mark, were you the one who decided we were going to go for a walk in the woods? The calibration walk. We're going to go for a walk in the woods. And the idea was to figure out our calibration photometry. And Nick was with us. And we were doing very well. And then Nick realized that he had to go back to the ranch for some reason. Maybe he had to meet Sheridan or something. And he left us alone. And what happened? What do you think happened to us? We got lost. Turned around, maybe. But Mark was not stressed about it. I mean, that's one of the things about Mark, right? He's very chill. Every time I meet him and every time we interact, he's always really laid back. Then again, we've never played golf together, so maybe I have a biased observation. So we're walking along, and we come across a boat. By the way, Armin was with us because we were figuring, you know, Pan-STARRS was the future, and maybe we get him to do all the hard work. And in fact, we did get him to do all the hard work. And Mark decided, let's just go in the rowboat and go for a row, and he got Armin to do all the rowing. And here's how it went. I stayed out of the boat because I really wanted to get this on film. And, you know, not exactly a straight line, going around. But, you know, nobody died, the boat didn't sink. Mission accomplished. So the wisdom from this is, have Nick along with you if you want to know what direction you're going in. It's really good for that. And even though you may get turned around, never forget to stop and row the boat. All right, back to what I was going to talk about. And this is about light curve parameters. So you probably are all familiar with type 1a supernovae and the fact that they are standardizable and they have light curve parameters. And this goes back to the problems we started having with Fornax A. This is another one of those supernova factories, and it was the host for supernova 1981D to supernova 1980N. So, you know, very, very close together. By the way, these were artificially added in just for purposes of illustration. And then after it had gone through a little dull spell, it then produced 2006 MR and 2006 GD. And so this was a great way to say, hey, we've got 4 type 1a supernovae in the same galaxy. Let's go through the exercise of figuring out what each one predicts at the distance, and hopefully they will all agree. And that would be great. But of course, things don't quite work out that way. Because 1980N and 81D and 2006DD are all what you would call normal type 1a supernovae. 2015 is 1.1, 1.2, practically 1.1. And 2006 MR is a 1.820. And it's practically the fastest one we've got in our sample. And using my light curve fitter, which I've cobbled together over the years, we got relatively reasonable results for the distances to this galaxy using 2 different methods, and everything was great. You'll notice that this is missing down here, and I'll get into why. But 2006 MR was very, very different from that galaxy, from the other estimates. And so I was thinking, I had some choice words. Mark had a choice word. It's this word he uses a lot, actually. The word is interesting. Interesting. Why does it not work? Okay, well here's the reason why. So I have 2 supernovae plotted on top of each other, all normalized to the peak, just so you can see the differences in the shape of the light curves. And I think you'll agree that 2006 MR, is quite a bit steeper, or quite a faster decliner than 2005 KD. But if you go to day 15 and check to see what delta M15 is for these 2 objects, you practically get the same answer. They cross at day 15. This is a bad thing, right? You've got a light curve parameter that's supposed to predict the shape of your light curves, and it's just not working. And it works even worse when you take a sample of these objects, and here I am plotting up the flux as a function of time for several different objects binned by delta M15 here. And this is the Snoopy light curve templates that I try to make by this training sample. And you can see for the B band, it's not too bad, it works relatively well. But over here, something is definitely not working. We have slow decliner with a nice peak in the, this is, by the way, this is Y band, sorry. And then it's going down, and then you get to a place where, okay, there is no secondary peak, or there's a little bit of a secondary peak, and then you go even faster, okay, the secondary peak's back again, and then it's gone. And so you can see the templates are trying to do the right thing, but they're not capturing what's going on. And so this is why the thing was working. And this was brought to my attention by my colleague, Max, who very diplomatically told me that there might be something wrong with my light curve fits. I can't actually say what he really said. The other thing we're looking at, of course, is also this Lira relation to do the Regni corrections. And one of the things that really jumps out at you about a Lira relation after the fact that they all pile up after about day 30 or so, is that there's a large difference in when the B minus V light curve peaks, and it just goes lockstep with how fast the object is evolving. And so it's kind of like a timestamp, it's a time marker, and you can use that to figure out how fast things are evolving. 2006 MR shoots way up really fast, and then the slower decliners take their time. So I thought, okay, well, why not turn that into a light curve parameter? Sort of like a stretch parameter. And so here I've got 3 different objects. They all peak in B minus V at different times relative to B maximum. Again, I've just sort of normalized everything at 0 just so you can see the differences in the shapes. And all I say is, okay, day 30, we'll just call that a nice round number. And anything that peaks before that is a low stretch. Anything that peaks after that is a high stretch. So basically, the time of B minus V maximum divided by 30 days gives you a stretch-like parameter. I really wanted to keep a parameter that you could measure directly from the light curves. I really feel that's I'm still kind of an observer, so I like being able to do that. So how does it work? It works really well as far as getting, at least predicting what these light curve shapes should do. So here's the same plot I had before, but now instead of using this new thing I'm calling color stretch, rather than delta M15, so just S sub, okay, we're running out of power here, S sub BV, just because it was done with the B minus V light curve. You can do it with G minus R if you want, that's fine too. And as you can see, everything works much more correctly, and the double peak ones happen for the slow decliners, and they transition very nicely to a single peak. And we've done this with more data as well, of course, not just the training sample, and it all seems to work out quite nicely. So how does this compare to other light curve parameters? Well, let's start with delta M15 over here. Okay, this is one we know and love. and here's this new parameter I was proposing. And as you can see down here, what's going on is it's saying it's faster, but at some point delta and 15 is kind of the same answer no matter which object you use. So it's not capturing that aspect. And interestingly, it also seems to happen at the high end too. So maybe there's something going on there. I don't know for sure at the moment, but we'll see. On the other hand, if you go back to Saurabh's MLCS2K2 parameter, delta, it works well for the fast decliners. And it does that because it's almost by definition, it's defined as a brightness parameter, not a stretch parameter. And so it really has to work with the underluminous objects. So we were talking at lunch, and sure enough, if you go to the other end, over here, it starts leveling off. And that's just because the Phillips relation levels off. And over here we have what it looks like with SALT2's X1 parameter, and again it sort of dies just like this remote is dying here at the low end, but that's just because it wasn't trained on those objects, so it's more or less just to see how far you can push it. Alright. This just shows how we then use this parameter to parameterize the colors, and it works very nicely for getting the intrinsic colors of type 1As. I'm just going to go quickly and say, here, I did the correction, everything looks pretty good. I'll accept the U-band, of course, and that's when Mark said that was also interesting. And it turned out to actually be quite interesting. I don't have time to get into it, but we actually have reasons why some of those are not behaving so well. All right, so here, the moment you've all been waiting for. Here's my Phillips relation, and we have B, V, and I. I've left out the near-infrared light curves because my colleague Kevin is going to be showing those. But I hope you see that when you look at delta and 15, there's kind of like this cliff down at this end where those guys just sort of fall off. Whereas when you use this other parameter, things are a little more smooth. And then I can also say, well, what about 2006 MR? That one that gave us such trouble at the beginning. There it is. Looks good. I like it. I do my happy dance. We're good. Okay. So it is with great reluctance that I contemplate changing Snoopy's default light curve parameter from delta N15 to stretch, color stretch. And this has been sitting in my terminal for a while now. I just having a hard time hitting the return button on that. Maybe Mark, I'm going to get you to do it. I'm going to get you to do it. Okay. Well, just a quick summary. The choice of light curve parameters matters. If you're trying to classify things, then you want to make sure you're classifying them correctly. For theoretical modeling, I mean, I've seen a lot of plots up there with how the Phillips relation behaves with delta and 15. You might want to try this if you like. It's also important for cosmology because you can always throw out the subluminous objects. I prefer not to throw things out, I prefer to fit them out. So you might consider using a parameter like this, or another parameter, but it's probably worth investigating whether there's one that works better for the majority of these objects. And of course, more data is needed to confirm that these subluminous objects are reliable standard candles, which they seem to be in these few cases with CSV1 data, but we got to work with more data. CSV2 is coming, so we'll do that as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Are there questions?
I want to say how fantastic this work is and how important it is because, in the sort of cosmology community, there's this, everyone is using SALT2 bits right now, and that's it. And you can make the argument, yeah, most objects are not, but then an object like 2014J comes along, which has a lot of brightening, and we want to know the distance from that object. And your method is the only one that can really do it, right now well. And there are going to be other individually interesting objects where you want to know the distance. So, if we think that these are reliable standardizable candles, and everyone can talk about the Phillips relation, the people used to talk about whether it had this break and how smooth it was, and whether that also, as Boaz pointed out, and Zubo, has implications for progenitors, how smooth it is. think this work shows that it is quite smooth all the way down to those objects. And I think they can be used, and they should be used for distances. They sample a different galaxy population. There's a lot of reasons that you would want to have a fitter that can handle all of these. So I'm really, really happy that such a thing exists. So thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
And there's another question there. There. Was there one?
Hi, I'm not too familiar with these methods. I don't have a specific question. I just noticed the scatter in your templates was very, very tiny. So I'm wondering what you're doing about reddening.
The scatter in which
When you showed the template light charts that you had, the scatter was very tiny. Yeah, there.
back here.
Yes. The scatter was very tiny, so I'm just curious what you're doing about reddening.
What I'm doing already, yeah. So one of the things you do when you're doing light curve training is you take your best objects, which means they are typically they are observed for longer, pre-maximum, and usually means they're closer, and also usually means they're not reddened, because when we have a lot of redness, for instance, 2006X was very close. You could try and use it, but what happens is, first of all, U-band just died right off. We couldn't observe it very far in U-band because it was just so heavily reddened. And also it's a light echo, which completely messes this up. So one of the things you kind of have to do is only go for those objects that are only moderately reddened. And first order, all the reddening is going to do is it's just going to move those curves up and down. And everything, the first thing you do is you just normalize everything to a peak flux is one. So you're really just worried about the shape in this case, not the actual luminosity. That comes at the next stage when you actually go and do some proper analysis to get the reddening done.
Santiago?
Have you tried with fitting high redshift?
Define high redshift.
I don't know, higher than 0.2, 0.3.
Yeah, so we have the high Z CSP1 program, and we have a data there, and yeah, it fits very well. Although I will say again, if I didn't make this clear, if you're only working with the normal objects and not so much the subluminous, then delta and 15 and SBB practically give the same answer because there's such a tight correlation between the two parameters, and so the templates look very similar. So I don't really have, I don't think, any real good tests for high redshift objects that are really like, 2006 MR or something like that. But yeah, you can fit them and they look good. And of course, usually for the high redshift stuff, we don't have the near-infrared, so it's hard to test that.
Very quick.
So this seems similar to C-Magic. How is it different than that?
Yeah, it does have a little bit of C-Magic where I have nothing, there's nothing about the actual luminosity of the object in this parameter. It's simply a timing of the peak of the B minus B magnitude. C-Magic is like a color magnitude diagram, and you see it goes through certain loops in that space. And one of those loops is the B minus B maximum that I'm using. And there's a part in C-Magic where the evolution becomes very linear, and that just happens to be in the same direction as the reddening vector, if you believe it's 3.1, would go. And so the C-Magic is measuring the brightness of the object at a particular color, whereas this is just another way of getting stretch. So they're similar, and then they use the B minus B color, or whatever color you like, but they're not the same.
Okay. Thank you, Chris. Let's thank you.